It's a big moment in the world of X-Men. We are into the Destiny of X, which is pretty much kicked off with the Immortal X-Men #1 last week. This week we get 2 #1s and essentially kind of a reset for X-Force. So we've got X-Men Red #1, we've got Marauders #1, and we're going to do X-Force. And here with me, as always, is the X-Men historian, the Marvel aficionado, Doc. How you doing, Doc?
We've had worse X weeks recently.
We have, absolutely. We got a double dose of X-Lies and X-Des just a few weeks ago, and that was worse in my opinion. At least we get one comic book that's really, I think, worth reading. It's not super exhilarating or anything, but I do think X-Men Red #1 from Al Ewing and Stefano Caselli is certainly an acceptable comic book. I even recommend it. It's not a highly recommend, but hey, in a week like this, a recommend is what you get. This thing looks outstanding. It is a talking head, exposition-heavy comic book, but Stefano Caselli, who I'm an enormous fan of, makes it look so slick. It looks good, Doc.
Honestly, he probably fell asleep at his art table a few times while drawing this and reading the script. However, you can't tell because he still did an amazing job. There's just nothing that happens in this comic book.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that happens, but it's all talking. There's no action in it. It's just really, it's a table setter comic as we have Magneto moving to Mars, I guess. He's relocating and retiring because he's quit the X-Men Quiet Council, and I guess he needs to build himself a castle and stuff like that. So they're kind of building that up. I didn't think that was done very spectacularly, but the Fisher King guy, the whatever dude, he's not a mutant, but he grew up on Araco. That didn't make sense to me. I didn't find that new character all that compelling, but Magneto is Magneto.
Magneto was just being Magneto. He was at least written within character. He was solid. Nothing interesting really going on except for he's retiring and building a house.
And the other thing that they're doing in this comic book, which is certainly was being set up within Sword, is establishing that Storm is the region of Mars. They're starting to call her the Queen of Mars. She doesn't want to be called royalty. There's definitely a little friction between her and Iska, the Abomination, the Unsullied, Iska the Unsullied, whatever that Iraqi mutant is. So there's a bit of tension between those two characters, but I guess Storm is having these dreams of fighting herself, and there's this evil version that is kind of, I don't know, saying that she's unworthy.
Well, I think this is actually flashback to how she took the throne, because apparently whoever the previous queen was after that Annihilation chick, the one that was kind of the interim throne up until Storm became the queen, was like a mimic. There was supposed to be like an implied internal struggle as the result of this, where Storm there was something that was mimicking her, that was reading her, that was picking a part that said that it was at her prime. Current Storm had to fight it, and then she ends up with a lot of like inner turmoil and questioning herself and stuff. And I know it was supposed to be like a deep character exploration on Storm in this comic. Honestly, it wasn't all that deep. It really wasn't.
I think it would have been more effective if they probably showed this conflict when it happened instead of flashing back to it, but that's neither here nor there. The other big character there's 2 of them. First, we see Roberto has opened up a bar on Mars, which I think is kind of a stupid premise, but I think it's actually executed pretty well. I think this is the best part of the comic. Vulcan is upset that he was essentially kicked out, I guess, of the Shi'ar galaxy, and he's looking for a fight, and he and Roberto are going to go at it. And I thought this was the best part. We did see Abigail show up, and I think Magneto ends up showing up because apparently Storm needs to get a new X-Men team. I guess we don't have enough X-Men teams out there, and we're just going to have an X-Men team strictly from Mars.
Except for we get big reveal at the end that Brand is saying, yeah, Mars needs an X-Men because Earth has an X-Men, and they need to be separate in the eyes of the humans and whatever, blah, 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 blah. You need to create an X-Men, and Storm decides, no, since we're on Araco and it's a whole different planet, what we really need is a brotherhood instead of, the Brotherhood of Mutants instead of the X-Men, and that she's recruiting Magneto into it.
Makes sense. Magneto's played a big history in the Brotherhood of Mutants. Like I said, this isn't a great comic, but I'll give it 3.5 out of 5. This is a lot of table setting, great art, but it's very exposition heavy. Now let's move over to something that I think was absolutely awful. This would have been primetime real estate in Worst of the Week if we didn't already have just an X-Men show. Marauders #1 from Steve Orlando and Eleonoro Carlini is absolutely the drizzling shits. The art in this, I fucking hated almost as much as the writing.
This is dollar store Adam Warren, and I'm not the biggest fan of Adam Warren, like Americanized manga style with the exaggerated faces and the big eyes and the weird proportions. I'm not a manga guy. I mean, obviously.
This is very bad art. Do not say this is manga art. This is shitty comic art.
Yes, but it's shitty comic art that was that American attempt at manga that never really quite works. It just really wasn't good. I don't know how else to describe it except for
don't worry. People are going to say it. It looks absolutely like dog shit, but thankfully it reads just as poorly. Steve Orlando is really coming in here with not a very good impression. Obviously, we had that Marauders Annual that was terrible. This is just as bad, if not worse. There's nothing worse in comic books than self-insert characters, and Steve Orlando's Somnus is the worst self-insert character in Marvel Comics. I don't even want to get into what he's implying with what he's doing with Dakin or whatever, but I fucking hate this character. There's nothing redeeming about Somnus.
No, there is nothing interesting here about it. He's supposedly like some fucking octogenarian that was asleep and woke up now, and he used to bang Dakin or something. I don't know. I don't care.
They banged in their sleep for thousands of years.
Nothing about this is intriguing to me, and now it's some weird love triangle with Dakin and Somnus and Aurora for whatever reason. I guess that goes back to that X Factor title. It was like they needed an impetus to put the Marauders in space this time.
He just made up of some bullshit where there's like these weird double crosses, and now the Marauders have to go to space to make it right. Well, he just pulled everything out of his ass.
We already had the retconning in of all of the Araco mutants from like thousands and thousands of years ago. So now the current generation of mutants, like the ones that started around the 60s, those are now the third generation. It was bad enough when Hickman made them the second generation, but now they've bumped them to the third because they added in a now first blood that apparently the Shi'ar Empire, like 1 million years ago, came back and stole, like the goddamn Pharisees to the Israelites, taking them to go be slave labor in, Egypt or some shit. I feel like that's where he's going with this. There's millions of mutants that nobody gives a shit about now. Steve Orlando is about to set up another generation of mutants that nobody's going to give a shit about. There was the hashtag for a while ago, make Bishop swole again, make Bishop a badass again. Even though he's the captain commander at this point, he still allows himself to default over to whatever Kitty wants.
He's subservient.
And it's really kind of insulting. That's not who Bishop would be at all. It's bad.
This whole comic book is a mess. Is there anything else that you can even remember out of here that's worth talking about?
Oh, God.
I'm never going to read this again.
No.
I came back and took a gander. Marauders is off the table again.
The only other thing that was in this was the Cassandra Nova thing that is just completely inexplicable why Kitty actually is going to put her on a fucking team. At no point did they justify that decision. Other than
she's like harvesting organs from the island or something weird.
Yeah. And Kitty's weird mystery box. And they really need to leave this whole Brimstone love shit from that annual. They need to never, ever. That was so bad. The fact that they're still referencing it, Jesus Christ, knock it off.
This comic is pretty much irredeemable. I give it 1.5 out of 5 stars, and I feel like I'm being overly generous. The art sucked. The writing is just as bad, if not worse. Now let's get to the last comic book. There was an X-Force Annual from Nadia Sheamus. I'm not going to waste my time with that. That's not even important. We do have X-Force 27, Ben Percy, Robert Gill. It's kind of a reboot. It's a resetting of what X-Force are going to be moving forward. I thought Immortal X-Men was the Quiet Council comic, but we get 9 pages of Quiet Council fucking debate in here.
Everything in the X-Men at this point is nothing but talking head bullshit. And I'm tired of it. Like, we thought we were going to get that just shuttled off over into Immortal, and then the rest of the books could actually have some adventuring and shit. Nope, still no adventuring. There's 9 pages of Beast and Sage arguing counterpoints to the Quiet Council about nonsense.
Well, they're talking about Omega Red, who we just witnessed travel through the ages and try to murder Charles Xavier's lineage so he would never exist and none of this would ever happen. As Wolverine was obviously trying to stop him. Obviously, that's going to play key into this here in a few moments when we get to that part. But they're just like, you know what? We should debate whether or not we bring Omega Red back. Beast has no point, and Sage is like, well, we did put that carbonium whatever thing into his heart, and we tracked him, so we were kind of mean to him. And the fact that they would even consider bringing Omega Red back after everything that he's done is absolutely balderdash and ludicrous. It is so fucking stupid.
Some of their underhanded shenanigans with Omega Red might have pushed him over to Mikhail's side. I don't fucking care. He still did it. That's called a fucking like wild card that you don't need.
Yeah, it was just a stupid point. I can't believe they resurrected him. They're going to try and make friends with him. The other big thing happening in this comic book is we had Cerebro on Logan. We had it on Wolverine. And he says it. He's talking about what it was like to be in there. And it was all just bullshit. It's like, shut the fuck up, Ben Percy. You have no idea what Wolverine's voice sounds like anymore. You've kind of lost the plot. But he leaves it, and all of a sudden its eyes glow, and now it has tentacles, and Forge hears something. He goes in there, and it eats Forge's brain. The Cerebrax is alive and sentient now in the sprouted tentacles, and it is sporting Forge's brain, which is obviously a very useful resource.
I'm sorry, Joe Kelly did this a lot better when he did the Sentient Cerebro back in like 1998, 1999. Cerebrax is weird. They're using something that happened during the X Lives of Wolverine. Now, apparently has somehow infected this Cerebro helmet and made it sentient for no apparent reason. Now it just wants to slaughter people. The way that it looks like is they're going to go with, see, Omega Red is actually okay. And this is now the evil Omega Red stuck in a helmet. That's what it feels like they're going with. Like Omega Red possessed the fucking helmet at the end. Because if you look at the art on the tentacles, they sort of resemble Omega Red's floppy coil things. Little tiny bit. Yeah.
You saw floppy. Omega Red's floppy?
I saw his floppy, and I was very disappointed. Would have expected, a little bit bigger.
Big did.
This is a bad rehash of a mediocre story that if somebody that Joss Whedon already rehashed when he did the Sentient Danger Room. Plus the fact that, look, I mean, throughout that whole X Lives, X Deaths of Wolverine, if there's one thing Ben Percy did demonstrate is he doesn't know what the mechanics of how Cerebro works, like how it even works. So having Cerebrax, that's apparently a mutant sentient helmet version of a helmet that he didn't even understand how it worked in the first place, this is just asking for bad storytelling. I'm done with fucking X-Force.
I think this is better than Marauders, but only slightly. I'll give this one 2 out of 5. I do not recommend this. The Robert Gill art is serviceable, but it's not great. I did not enjoy this at all, and I don't think I'm on board for the rest of X-Force. So it was not a great week in X-Men, but it wasn't terrible because we did get X-Men Red #1, which was a pretty decent table setter, fantastic art. Marauders #1 is just an abomination. And X-Force 27, Ben Percy has lost the plot. He needs to find something else to work on. He's doing good stuff over there with Ghost Rider, but I do not foresee me sticking around for this stuff. Just this week, we learned why there might be some issues with X-Men readers and the actual writers. Leah Williams let the cat out of the bag. The writers are above the readers in the consumer expectations. You got to hear this. You have to see it to believe it. This is actually what Leah Williams said in an interview with Polygon.com when they were talking about Omega level mutants. This is what's wrong with X-Men right now.